Hey, Foot Clan, big news. There is a very short amount of time left to get in our Ultimate Draft Kit bundle. You know you're going to get the Ultimate Draft Kit. It's the best way to dominate your draft year in and year out. But if you get in right now, not only do you get the best price of the year, but you have a chance to be in our 2019 Listener League. So check it out. Go to ultimatedraftkit.com, see all the cool stuff, including a new app for this season. You won't regret it. Do it now, ultimatedraftkit.com.
Welcome to the Fantasy Footballers Podcast, coming to you from pristineauction.com studios with your hosts, Andy Holloway, Jason Moore, and Mike Wright.
Oh, man down. But don't worry, we got this.
Yeah, Mike is at home, I hope, puking his guts out.
Whimpering.
I mean, if he's not puking, he should be here. In fact, I would argue that buckets are portable, and he should be here.
You don't want him here.
No, I don't.
He's very ill. Mike is sick. Jay Grizz is in the house, holding it down. It's a two-man show today. Mike, get better. I believe he was live tweeting some of his illness yesterday.
Yes.
He was watching movies on the couch. He's got a fever. His wife is sick at the same time. It's Lord of the Flies at the Wright household. The kids are running the show. And he is watching whatever movie comes on the TV because the remote is just a little too far away. So
don't get better, Mike. Live your best life.
Live your best life.
Watch that TV.
Today's episode of the Fantasy Footballers is going to be a great one. We have trending or ending on the show today, a bunch of news. And look, today's Thursday, February 28th, the Combine getting rolling.
Yeah,
Free agency coming soon.
Combine's going on right now. Some of the interviews are starting. Some of the weigh-ins are starting. This weekend will be, the big show.
Yeah. Oh, it's going to be great. Our quick question has to do with the Combine. Have you also listened, Jason? Have you listened carefully? There's been more. We're getting to that time of year.
Yeah.
You hear it?
I hear some hype trains out there.
Yeah, I mean, you're starting to hear all about, I think there was 3 or 4 reports today in a row.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you ask Matt LaFleur, head coach of the Green Bay Packers, a question, his full sentence can be 3 separate hype trains for the various players on his roster. So this is the time of year. This is why we say listen in now. We'll try to sift through all of the coach speak, separate fiction from reality a little bit. But with the Combine coming up, there will be a lot of hype related to the scores put up, the John Ross-esque scores.
Mm-hmm.
What do you look for most when you're watching the NFL Combine? Because I know we're all looking forward to it. What's your favorite thing to look for?
So before I talk about what you look for, I just want the Foot Clan to be aware, and I might get some pushback on this, okay? I might have people that are just vehemently wagging their finger at me saying, no, you're wrong. But no, you're wrong.
Ooh, the old you're wrong trick.
Combine metrics mean so little for the vast majority of every single offensive skill position player. There are so few things that actually have any kind of proven statistical impact on – I mean, so, you watch your 40 time, and you see the guys that are fast, and you see the guys that are slow, and you overreact. And, when you look at historical data models that, take into account success in the first few years in the NFL and what are the best metrics to use, I'm not saying that there is zero correlation with what happens at the Combine. Obviously – you'd rather have a more athletic guy than a less athletic guy. But if you just look at who's succeeding in the NFL and you look at their Combine scores and you go across the board, there is no magic Combine score that's going to make your guy better. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, if you were going to bring up the different things I pay attention to, sometimes I look to see if I'm going to be surprised by a plethora of negative scores or a player that doesn't meet expectations. I mean, I would have to say it didn't help Ronald Jones last year to not turn in a fast 40 time when that was his main event.
Well, yes and no.
But then you had a player like Dalvin Cook a couple of years ago who really collapsed at the combine and from day one looked like a difference-making back in the NFL.
Yeah, but Ronald Jones, if you remember last year, he didn't turn in his best time because he got hurt, like mid-run. So
yes. But it influenced his draft stock. Regardless.
His did not count. But, yeah, if you look at Dalvin Cook and Calvin Ridley, right, their combine scores were horrific. They were never going to – draft
certainly
Twitter
didn't meet expectations.
Draft Twitter said they cannot succeed because their combine scores were bad.
But then you have player Aaron Donald, Saquon Barkley, who solidified their draft stock or translated some of those things.
There are outliers where, like those two players.
I think it is a hot take to say that it doesn't matter that much.
Aaron Donald and Saquon. Let me clarify. If someone comes out and is pretty much 99th percentile in every single metric, like those two guys, they matter.
Okay.
It's very rare. So maybe Mike Gesicki, who is last year's rookie tight end of the Dolphins, he was like 99th percentile across the board. Maybe he'll turn up in the NFL over the next few years.
They're looking for him.
Common for tight ends. But here's what I'm looking for at the combine. Two things. One, my favorite thing, I think I said this last year, and spoiler alert, I'll say it next year. My favorite thing to watch for is the receiving drills for running backs, because you can tell a difference. You can eyeball tell a difference between the players that are just, you go back and watch Christian McCaffrey and how he catches the ball. It's thoughtless. It's effortless. It's second nature. He's just running, grabs the ball, keeps going. There's no mental break. There's no
Jordan Howard. I'm trying really hard to catch this ball.
Exactly.
And then I'll do something.
I want to see who can catch it in stride and who takes that mental break when they grab the ball, because everyone's going to catch every ball, but they don't catch them the same. So that's what I watch for. But if you do want one metric that has some semblance of
correlation
to projecting success, it is for running backs. It's not the 40. It's the weight-adjusted speed score. So it is the 40, but when you factor that into how much they weigh. So if you got a big boy, you got a 225-pound guy who's running a 4.45, that's really good. Don't just look at the 40 time. You got to adjust it for weight.
All right, tomorrow, March 1st, the workout groups, running backs, offensive linemen, special teams. Saturday, you'll see quarterbacks and wideouts, tight ends. It'll be exciting. It'll be fun. Follow us on Twitter at the FF Ballers. You can follow each of us individually at Jason FFL. Mike is at FF Hitman.
And Jay Grizz is Jay Grizz FFL.
Yeah. Mine's at Andy Holloway. And I'm sure we'll have some things to say as the combine progresses. So if you want to stay connected with us, do that. You can find us on Instagram. That's Instagram.com/fantasyfootballers. You can subscribe, review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, ad-free on Stitcher Premium. We appreciate your support. What?
Jay Grizz has over 20,000 Twitter followers.
Yeah, but obviously.
Follow the bear.
It's because in moments like that, when I'm promoting our show and our handles,
I will be honest. He's one of the best.
You circumvent and you tell the people about the bear. You're a bear evangelist.
He's one of the best follows on Twitter. And whoever runs that account, which we all know is Jay Grizz.
Well, I can say this. It's none of us. Nobody in this studio runs that account.
Is so good at it.
Yeah. A lot of thought and effort goes into being a bear on Twitter.
That's true.
All right, again, Jason mentioned it to open the show. If you pre-order the UDK before March 1st, you get a $10 gift card to shopballers.com, a $10 gift card to fantasychamps.com, and you get a chance to win a Ultimate Fantasy Footballers prize pack, including a studio tour and a sit-in on a recording, 2 customized jerseys from fantasychamps.com, and a shout-out on the show. A shout-out.
Wow.
As the first member of the 2019 Listener League. Check all that out at ultimatedraftkit.com.
News and notes from around the league, presented by Sleeper.
All right, we're hitting the rumor mill a little bit today, but we've also got some big news. Let's start with the news out of Denver recently. John Elway said the Broncos are indeed picking up the contract option on wide receiver Emmanuel Sanders.
I love that they're doing it. I'm surprised that they're doing it. You know, you got a plus 30 wide receiver coming off of a torn Achilles. That's right? Wasn't it a torn Achilles? You gave me a look like it might not be, but I'm pretty confident that's what it was. So I'm happy for Emmanuel Sanders. He tweeted out, the coach said it's happening. Let's make it a great one. And look, Emmanuel Sanders was dominating last year. Even with Case Keenum, Emmanuel Sanders was a fantasy star. So if he can get healthy, and prior to the season you see him running around and that he is back, he'll probably slip in drafts, and I would be fine taking him. It hurts Deshaun Hamilton.
Well, that's what I was going to bring up, and that was my face. It wasn't the injury. He was indeed injured, tore his Achilles. But it was in the same breath, John Elway talked about expecting big things from Cortland Sutton. You got Deshaun Hamilton there, a quarterback situation that's probably going to be in the hands of Joe Flacco. We don't know that for sure. But what is Cortland Sutton taking a nosedive on a one-year glance?
No, I don't think so. I mean, Demaryius Thomas was great with Emmanuel Sanders still there. I don't think that – look, if Cortland Sutton is good enough to be a true one in the NFL, he's good enough to do that with or without Emmanuel Sanders on the field. I don't think – I mean, maybe his top end comes down a little bit. Maybe he has fewer targets he can receive, but I don't think it – Deshaun, on the other hand, who kind of projects more in the Emmanuel Sanders type, he's not the big-bodied downfield receiver the same way that Cortland Sutton is. I think Deshaun takes the hit.
All right. Let's go ahead and turn here. This is very interesting news, Jason. Free agent running back Latavius Murray is looking for a starting role. Make no mistake about it. He says, I want to start. I'm not content being a backup.
I am also looking for a starting gig in the NFL. So if any GMs are out there, both myself and Latavius Murray strongly believe in ourselves that we can be a starting running back. None of this backup nonsense.
Now, look, we have a platform, right? This is a large podcast. A lot of people listen to it. But ultimately we decide, what we're going to talk about. This, you talking about wanting to be in the NFL, it just naturally lends itself to the fact that you scored a touchdown.
A game-winning
touchdown in our flag football game on Tuesday.
Who
threw you that pass?
Oh, it was this MVP caliber quarterback, Mr. Andrew Holloway, threw the game-winning touchdown pass to me. And I've heard on the streets it referred to as a boss touchdown.
Yeah, Jason went with the very Sir Charles rebound strategy.
Yes.
He wrapped it up with two hands and then just, nobody could get it.
No,
it was all yours.
I went up. It was a jump ball situation. I grabbed it, and I was laying on the ground with that ball.
We had our first victory.
We did.
Yeah.
First
victory.
Not our first game, though.
All right, hey, here's some hype train other news. New Raiders GM Mike Mayock, normally this time of year Mike Mayock is talking about draft picks. Now he is going to be talking about them, but in the context of being the new GM of the Raiders.
Let's talk about the Falcons coach. Dan.
I'm sorry, we're going to have to stay here, Jason.
No.
He said Marcel Aitman is Oakland's #1 ex-wide receiver. He's also very excited about running back Chris Warren. Jason, tell us about these players on Oakland.
I am so mad at Chris Warren, the man. And he has done nothing other than be an excellent running back last year in preseason, got injured, and the Raiders clearly liked him. They stashed him on IR the whole season.
Yes, they did.
They wanted him back, and now he's being talked up. Look, if you're in a dynasty league, Chris Warren should be stashed in every format. I held on to Chris Warren last year in our dynasty league.
Yeah.
Up until about 3 days ago, where instead of dropping Des Bryant, I actually dropped Chris Warren. I made a mistake. I went to rectify that mistake. I was going to go out there and grab Jordan Lasley, which another dynasty owners, if you're out there, Jordan Lasley, just like Marcel Aitman, projects to be pretty much the one until free agency and the draft happens. That's the Baltimore rookie from last year. But I went to bid and bring Chris Warren back on my team, and I was outbid.
You know who got him, Brooks?
I have a pretty good idea.
Yeah,
I'll give you a hint. He's stupid and ugly and one of my best friends.
All right. Yes, I picked up Chris Warren. Also picked up Marcel Aitman.
You did. You had a good
yesterday.
Day.
So pay attention. Look, I've talked to a lot of people. Talked to Justin Boone on his podcast the other day. he takes the approach that a lot of fantasy owners do. Don't touch an Oakland Raider. I mean, you just don't want a piece of that offense. But in my opinion, it doesn't matter how good that offense is. If you have the guys, I don't think they're going to spend the money in free agency other people think they will. I don't. And if Chris Warren and Marcel Aitman have opportunities there in Oakland to be coached up, Aitman came on at the end of the year. Chris Warren has an opportunity. No more Sean Lynch this year.
No more Sean Lynch.
Did I say more Sean?
No more Sean
Lynch. And no Doug Martin. So Jared Cook going to test the open market in free agency. If Jared Cook leaves, talk about a void of pass catchers in Oakland.
Right, and the throwers.
What?
Well, they only have Derek Carr, so they could use a quarterback.
Derek Carr had a great year.
He did. It's really weird because he didn't at all. But
right, but he did,
His stats say he had a good year.
Yeah, he didn't, and he did.
But I don't think anybody out there thought, man, Derek Carr really had a great year.
No, including his head coach. I don't think his head coach thought that. Hey, another dynasty player to pay attention to. Running back, Ito Smith, second year running back. Falcons coach Dan Quinn says he's going to see a significant increase in offensive looks this season. Tevin Coleman, a free agent. Ito Smith, drafted by this regime.
It makes sense. I mean, this is basically them saying, yeah, I think Tevin Coleman is gone.
Right.
But instead of saying that, they said, yeah, Ito Smith's going to be great. This is also, and this is something the Foot Clan should know, this is the time of year where all players are great, and their coaches love them all, and they are fantastic, and they're all going to be the best.
Speaking of that, Kyle Shanahan says Jerick McKinnon went down with the torn ACL last preseason. On track in his recovery, expects him to be the lead back in San Francisco. Do we get redemption from Jerick McKinnon? All the expectations last year were very high.
Yeah, we do. I was high on him last year. He unfortunately got injured. I am right back on the train. I never left. It was parked.
That's what they do. They park him in a garage. Yeah.
What do you do with the train?
Train yard. They go to right, Brooks?
What do you?
You know trains.
Okay, all right.
Yeah,
Can I ask a question,
right.
Brooks? What do they do with the train in the train yard? Would you say they park it in the train yard?
Yeah, I guess so.
I don't know. I'm no train spurt.
Agreed. Andrew Whitworth coming back, Rams offensive tackle. This is big news for Todd Gurley, coming back for a 14th year. Yes, he's 37.
But he was great.
Yes, he's great.
He was great last year, graded out, excellent across the board. This is huge news because he's
foundational to that offensive line.
Every piece of credit has been given to Sean McVay, and Sean McVay certainly deserves some. But the offensive line, if you look at Gurley's numbers, yards before contact, things like that, a huge part of it was Andrew Whitworth, and him coming back is great news for Todd Gurley.
Yeah, absolutely. Les Snead, Sean McVay, you want to give him credit for adding Andrew Whitworth, you can do that. He's a great player. And then Ian Rappaport talked about the fact that Bengals are shopping third-year wide receiver John Ross, combine darling. Their director of player personnel said it was, quote, fake news. Neither of those reports are, we love John Ross and we can't wait to make him a part of our offense. So based on what you said, with every coach loving all their players right now, is John Ross, if you're a dynasty owner of John Ross, first of all, apologies. I'm sorry. You've probably gone through a box of Kleenex by now. Last year, he scored 7 touchdowns on 7 passes for 7 yards. But Ross hasn't been what they expected him to be. Dealt with injuries back in college, deals with them now. Tyler Boyd, A.J. Green. Look, is Ross a better... Would you be happier with him being moved, or would you be...
I'd be much happier with him being moved.
Even with Zach Taylor there in Cincinnati.
Yeah, I mean, look, if he stays, I think John Ross has a better 2019 than he had in 2018. I think he continues to progress. I think the offense gets better, but I mean, they're not in love with him. They probably were shopping him, and the reason that they say it's fake news is because once it comes out that they're shopping him, they don't have they're not going to get value. Everyone's going to offer nothing. So, I do hope he moves, because if another team is giving up value, then they want him as part of their team. Let's say John Ross goes to Tampa Bay, becomes the Deshaun Jackson replacement, the burner, and with Bruce Arians. I would love that, because I do think John Ross is actually a talented wide receiver. His deep catch rate, he had the highest percentage of uncatchable targets.
Well, if he kept his touchdown rate up last year and he caught 100 passes, he'd be up in the 35 touchdown range.
That's okay.
But look, John Ross, here's the good news. He is still just 24 years old, and he is a burner. And if he can get it turned around, he will change. He will take the top off of defense. Philadelphia, that could be a destination.
Would you be willing to target John Ross in Dynasty on the cheap, or are you off?
I'm off. He's firmly in the Devontae Parker category of if he does well for somebody else, then he does well for somebody else. I don't want to target him. He's not been good. Did you mention the Evan Silva quote about him?
I did not.
He's caught 35% of his targets.
That is atrocious.
He's dropped 12% of his targets.
Also atrocious.
But also 8% of his targets have been picked off.
That is atrocious.
Yeah, but he's averaging 3.5 yards per target.
Which is atrocious.
Yeah. By the way, lots of Dynasty chatter today. Make sure you switch your Dynasty League to Sleeper. Download the Sleeper app today. Move your lineup over to a modern platform. Let's get to the main event.
Trending or ending?
Jay Grizz, nothing to say?
No.
All right, hey.
Made out of cardboard.
Yeah. Aaron Jones, let's start here. Trending or ending? Let's have some debate, discussion. Aaron Jones, can he be an RB1 in fantasy for 2019? Last year, 133 rushing attempts, average 5.5 per carry. That is the league leader with a minimum of 130 attempts. The year before, guess what? 5.5 a carry.
Oh!
Too many fives not to hit that drop. Look, he was the RB9 in points per game from weeks 10 through 16. That's a good span. RB13 from weeks 4 through 14. Missed the final 2 games of the year. Placed on IR. What can fantasy owners get from Aaron Jones? Are we setting ourselves up for a value pick that turns into a top 12, top 15 guy, or for heartache due to a committee situation?
Look,
where do you weigh in?
On this show, last season was probably the most anti-Aaron Jones from just a cost to get him and belief of McCarthy and whether he would actually get enough volume to succeed. And you had to wait, like you said, until, week 10 before anything mattered with Aaron Jones. If you remember, he was suspended. Now, I believe that Aaron Jones will have a successful fantasy season in 2019. Is that RB1? I think that's like that. I think he's got the ceiling for it, but I would put him more in the top 20 running backs, a worthy draft pick. I don't think he's going to, especially with news coming out, right? Like Matt LaFleur said that running back is one of the more violent positions, and you need to take an RBBC approach, right? That's bad news. Fantasy owners hate hearing that he wants to do a split, same way he did with Dion Lewis and Derrick Henry, and the same way, he was part of the 2015-2016 Atlanta Falcons, and so he has that roadmap with Devonta Freeman, Tevin Coleman. But the split is fine if the predominant running back in that split is getting, 15 carries. Because if you look back to the 2015-2016 seasons with Devonta Freeman had 7 games each year with 15 or more carries. So he was fine in an RBBC. He was, I believe, the running back one of those years. If you look even last year with Matt LaFleur, with Dion Lewis and Derrick Henry, they combined for 9 games with 15 or more touches. Last season, Aaron Jones only had 3.
I think the thing you want to see from Matt LaFleur is not – we don't have delusions of an NFL where every team has one guy and they're the only one that touches the ball. But you want to see logical committee usage. You were frustrated so many times last year when Aaron Jones was carving up a defense, but then Jamal Williams found himself onto the field for important drives, key situations, and you almost felt that frustration through Aaron Rodgers. One of the things that I put in the positive column for Aaron Jones is the endorsement and confidence that Aaron Rodgers has shown in Aaron Jones. But there is a risk. There is a risk there because Jamal Williams is a competent running back.
Let me ask you this. Where do you think the Packers last season in 2018 ranked for total rushing attempts?
Oof. I have no idea, so let me guess. I'm guessing they ranked 25th.
Lower.
Are they dead last?
They're dead last. So
Yeah.
whatever you said, if it wasn't 32, the answer was,
I was
lower.
wrong. Yeah.
That was a franchise low for Green Bay's rushing attack as far as total rushing attempts by running backs. They've got nowhere to go but up. And now they've got an offensive coordinator coming in with a history of last year with Tennessee Titans. They were number 9 in rushing attempts.
But it took them a while to figure out that Derrick Henry needed the rock more too.
It did.
I don't like the question, Brooks. I don't like can he be an RB1. That is too open-ended. Of course he can. We've seen it. Will Aaron Jones be an RB1 in 2019? Will that trend continue, Jason? How do you weigh in today? I weigh in with a no. I think he'll be an RB2.
I weigh in with a no. I think he'll be an RB2, but I actually believe Aaron Jones will be a good fantasy pick because I don't think he'll be drafted anywhere near the top 12.
All right, number 2, trending or ending? Oh, this kind of hurts. Is Alshon Jeffery a wide receiver 3 for fantasy now? Points per game? Wow, Brooks, these are some numbers. He has been last year the wide receiver 25 in points per game. The year before 21. The year before that 35. So that's 3 consecutive years outside the top 20. He had 3 straight years inside the top 13 back in 2013, 2014, 2015. Do we need to adjust our expectations for Alshon Jeffery, or will Carson Wentz lift him up?
No, I mean, it depends on what your expectation is, but he is not a guaranteed wide receiver 2 or better. There's no way. I mean, last year when we were going into the draft, one of our bust alerts was the combo of Carson Wentz and Alshon Jeffery because you had Carson Wentz throwing an outlandish rate of touchdowns, and we said, okay, that's going to regress. Even if he has a really good year, that's going to regress. Alshon Jeffery made his hay scoring touchdowns. So if that regresses from Alshon Jeffery, he's not he's not usually the 100-catch, 1,300-yard type of receiver at all. He certainly doesn't seem like that right now. So it's all about the touchdown, and I think they bring in another wide receiver this offseason. I think Carson Wentz does rebound and has a good year, but the expectation for me is, wide receiver 25 is probably the highest I would draft him.
I believe that Alshon is a wide receiver 2, not a wide receiver 3. So if I said trending or ending, I think this trend of finishing outside the top 20 ends this year. I think he finishes right around wide receiver 17, 18. And the thing that people don't realize, because offseason is about perspective and perception and the news and the aura around a player. Look, it hasn't been positive for Carson Wentz. Nick Foles, every year they rally around him. Carson Wentz, injured again. News about locker room issues. But what are the facts about Carson Wentz? Here's the facts. Career high in completion percentage by a wide margin last year. Still a great touchdown to interception ratio, 3-1 last year. He had a better passer rating than his MVP season. Carson Wentz is the guy. Nick Foles is gone.
Yeah, he's a very good quarterback.
So do I think that Alshon Jeffery has top 10 potential again? No, I don't. I think those days are long gone. But I do know that Carson Wentz and Alshon Jeffery have a connection, and I think that's good enough to be inside that top 20. That's where I lean.
That's fair. I mean, the logic is sound. We will just agree to disagree. I'll say this. If they cut Nelson Aguilar and don't bring someone in, then he'll certainly be higher in my rankings because he'll have to be.
He'll still be the most tenured.
But I think that they are going to bring in someone that's an impact receiver.
All right, number 3 is Matt Ryan, a top 5 fantasy quarterback, trending or ending last year. He was the QB2, Jason. The QB2.
I know. I won a championship on his back. You remember that? I took that away from you.
Yeah, and he's still complaining about you climbing up there.
Okay.
He's not a fan.
He was also the number 2 quarterback 2 years ago in 2016.
People
was. Forget that.
And he's been in the top 10 4 other years, but he did have, based on the actual trend, he has bounced in and out of the top 10. His 4 straight years, 5 straight years.
His trend in 2012, he was the number 7. Great. Top 8 quarterback. Then he drops down to 15. Next year, he's back up to number 7. Then he drops to 19. Next year, he's up to number 2. Next year, down to 15. Oh, this past year, up to number 2 again. So
Based
I think
on that
we can,
trend.
Yeah, it's 15. Quarterback 15, Matt Ryan.
Oof. That'd be bad. That would be bad for fantasy.
All jokes aside, I believe he's much, much closer to quarterback 15 than he is to quarterback 2.
Really?
I do. Now,
So you're an ending.
I am an ending. I love the additional weapon of Calvin Ridley for him. He has always been as good as his wide receivers are. You know, some quarterbacks make their wide receiver core better. He doesn't. The wide receiver core makes him better. But last year, I think the absence of Devonta Freeman just destroyed their rushing game. They had the fewest number of rushing attempts that they've had in the last 5 years. They had to figure it out through the air. Also, if you remember at the beginning of the season when they were a Super Bowl contending team and then they lost their whole defense, like all of their superstar defensive players went down to season-ending injuries and their defense stunk. Well, their defense is going to be a lot better this year. They're not going to need to be in shootouts the way they were last year. I think the actual trend of the good year, bad year continues, and Matt Ryan has a bad year.
Well, that goes beyond the top 5 fantasy quarterback question. You think he actually has a down year. I think some people look at Julio, Calvin Ridley, and they think he can keep it going.
Hooper.
But I think that's an interesting argument. I guess I tend to lean outside the top 5. I think there'll be other guys emerging. You know, Carson Wentz or Matt Ryan. Who do you want next year?
Carson Wentz.
Yeah, that's where I lean too.
I mean, it's funny. Those are my 2 quarterbacks in Dynasty, and literally today, totally unrelated to this, I just decided to set my lineup because why not?
You're ready to go.
You're
ready to go.
Wednesday, February 27th.
Can I put Chris Warren in? Let me.
Oh, you shut your stupid. Yeah, you know what? Put him in.
Put
him in your starting lineup. Go ahead. Champ's not scared.
Do you want to trade me Mark Andrews for Chris Warren?
No, but we'll talk.
You're thinking about it, though.
No, the 203 is what you need. You trade me the 203, I'll trade you Mark Andrews. You need tight end. I want the 203. But I put Carson Wentz in my starting lineup over Matt Ryan just to say, that, look, he's my number 1.
A statement thing?
Yes. I had to send a message to Matty Ice. Say, look, I don't believe in you this year. I think Carson Wentz is going to be fine. Step it up.
I forgot you had Carson Wentz. That stinks. All right. Next one. Trending or ending. Is Robert Woods a top 12 wide receiver yet again in 2019? Look, it has been an ascension, a large one for Robert Woods, going back to his Buffalo days when he finished outside the top 60 at the position. Then his first year in Los Angeles, he was wide receiver 31. Then last year, hello, Robert Woods, wide receiver 10. Is he a top 12 guy? No, he's not. That's where I weigh in. Jason?
Yes, he is.
Yes, he is.
Yes, he is.
Wow.
Robert Woods is one of those perennially disrespected guys. Got off to too slow of a start for his career, so you just don't believe it. Very Doug Baldwin-esque, right? Doug Baldwin, you saw him for 5 or 6 years.
I like the comp. Yeah, that makes sense.
He's just like, we know what he is. He's not a stud fantasy player. He got a lot of touchdowns. He got lucky. No, he's a great wide receiver. And Robert Woods has always passed the eye test. He is actually a great wide receiver. Now he's on one of the best offenses in the league. You look at just about any week range last year, and you go, wow, he was good in the beginning of the year. Oh, okay, he was real solid in the middle. He was really good at the end. This wasn't like Cooper Kupp goes down, and now Robert Woods is relevant. Robert Woods was great. So I'm going to say Robert Woods is a top 12 wide receiver. Now, when my draft rankings are done and I stat every single player out, I'll be surprised if he finishes, because there's so many great wide receivers. I'll be surprised if he ranks in that top 12, but I view him as a wide receiver 1 in fantasy. Certainly not a tier 1 guy, but a guy wherever he is drafted next year, I already know it's going to be too low.
Well, the narrative out there is going to be Cooper Kupp returns. Last year, he ran 51%. This is Robert Woods ran 51% of his routes in the slot. The year before in Los Angeles, only 14% of his routes in the slot. Cooper Kupp does make a difference. You also wonder about an ascending talent in Gerald Everett. Is that another piece of the offense that Sean McVay takes advantage of? I just think I think you saw the ceiling last year, 86 for 12, 19, and 6. I think I just don't know if he can get back to that range.
Here's an interesting statistic for everyone out there who's going to totally agree with that narrative. And I think that, if we put
and the majority probably will.
Absolutely.
Which is to your point that he will always be drafted below where you believe he belongs.
85% of people out there will think, well, Cooper Kupp will come back. He's not the guy we saw. Well, you had 8 games with Cooper Kupp. You had 8 games without Cooper Kupp. Which one do you think he scored more fantasy points in? Because it was with Cooper Kupp. He scored 2 more fantasy points a game, 17.74 PPR versus 15.46 with Cooper Kupp.
Yeah, I mean, they were on fire.
I love Robert Woods.
You do. And which
Early
is ironic.
my guy
because
candidate.
It's ironic because, I loved Robert Woods in Buffalo.
Yeah, no, back in the...
There was a time when Buffalo had Sammy Watkins, Robert Woods, and Marquise Goodwin on the same roster. And Hogan might have been there one year with all 3 of them
and
as
people
well.
still thought Tyrod Taylor was a good quarterback.
I blame Rex Ryan.
I blame... Sure, I'm fine blaming Rex Ryan on that too.
Tyrod Taylor is an interesting free agent candidate, by the way.
He's a great fantasy quarterback.
He's a very interesting... there's a world where Tyrod Taylor ends up in Jacksonville, not Nick Foles. That's what I believe.
Absolutely.
All right. This is another great question here. Will Chris Carson see 20-plus touches a game? Because he did it over the last 4 weeks of last season, and 7 times during the year he had more than 20 touches. Chris Carson was a workhorse. 22, 28, 27, 20. That's how he finished the year. They had the second fewest rushing attempts 2 years ago to having the most rushing attempts last year. That's the way it's going to continue for them. They were successful. They won their last 5 games. Chris Carson was a monster. So does he continue to see 20-plus touches a game, Jason? Trending or ending?
No, I don't think he does. Will he be close? I mean, I'm going to probably stat him out for about 288 touches on a 16-game year, which would be...
That's a lot of touches.
That's a lot of touches.
But 451 is what the team had.
Yeah, that would... Well, and that's probably including Russell Wilson, all his scrambles. So that would be about 18 a game, which says I think Chris Carson's going to get a lot of work, but I don't believe he's going to be a 20-plus touch guy. I think Rashad Penny gets more involved. Year 2, you forget he broke his hand early in the season in the training camp, missed some preseason games, was a little out of shape. But later in the year, Rashad Penny looked good. Now, Mike Davis is, I guess I was going to say probably gone. That's no foregone conclusion. He might be back, but he is an unrestricted free agent.
Yeah, I think you overemphasized Mike Davis's usage, though. I know that they used him last year, but even if he's back, Penny, the first-round draft capital and how you saw Penny used at the end of the year, I'm just less concerned than you are about Mike Davis, about a guy that – any guy that can just be re-signed for pennies on the dollar, which is what the case is going to be for them. I just don't worry about him.
Yeah, I mean, the only reason I worry about Mike Davis is just simply touches. For Rashad Penny, it's the passing work, right? He had 34 receptions. He was often used as the pass-catching back. Rashad Penny should do that because he has the capability, but he also had 112 rushing attempts. So, it's just a good enough number to where those going away have to be taken up by someone. More than likely, if Mike Davis leaves, they're not going to not sign another back.
Sure. So I think we both agree. I don't think 20-plus a game is going to be in the realm of possibility, but
that would be 320 carries on the season. And also one thing to keep in mind, Chris Carson does not have a great track record of health. And when you watch him play, you understand why. Because he runs like a man with no fear of pain or linebackers.
Have you seen his shoulders? That's why he runs that way.
Dude, he is a
laboratory creation.
One could call him a man.
Yes.
But still, even these superstar NFL players,
300 carries a season, that's tough.
Yeah.
All right, here's one that I want to focus on. Will Derrick Henry see 15-plus rushing attempts per game in the upcoming year? Because, look, 2016, 7.3 a game. 2017, 11 a game. Last year, 13.4 a game. But over the last part of the season, he was an absolute monster. And the thing that should surprise fantasy owners about Derrick Henry is it wasn't just a volume situation. Look, he had the monster game, the super game. But look, Derrick Henry had success last year, seeing 8-plus men in the box 44% of the time. That's more than anybody in football. He received the ball around the goal line, the second most of anybody in football. He actually had Pro Football Focus rushing metrics that put him in the upper echelon of performance last year as a runner. So it wasn't just volume. That's what I want to bring up. And so it's like, do we have to just accept the fact that Derrick Henry is more valuable than we ever thought he would be?
Yeah, we really, really do. If I were to, I mean, the over-under here, 15 carries a game, that is way too low. This is an easy, absolutely yes, he will average more than 15 touches, 15 carries a game. During the final 4 games and including, into the playoffs, look, Derrick Henry took over. After his breakout game, they said, what are we doing? We need to give this guy the ball more. He to the tune of 21.8 carries a game, a 16-game pace of 348. If you had asked me, will Derrick Henry get 20 carries a game, that's right around where I think he will receive about 20 carries a game. So I think he'll crush the 15-carry count, and shame on me if I'm wrong, because Derrick Henry has we've got enough track record to say he has not been great in the NFL.
Right.
But I think they figured it out at the end of the year. They said, this is a guy that if we give him 12 carries a game, he's not doing to the defense what his best quality is. He's not wearing these guys down saying, hey, tackle this mountain.
Well, and the confidence of knowing you're going to get the ball, the confidence of knowing you're the guy. I mean, that makes a huge difference on the way a person runs. If he, for years, he had to run out there and spell somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And then they say, Derrick Henry, you're a bruiser. Go make a play on a single one-off.
Yes.
And then he runs into the back of it. I mean, 2 years ago, he failed to convert a lot of fourth downs because it's difficult to get into a rhythm. He is a rhythm monster.
Yeah, I think that they will give him the ball a lot, and I will probably draft him, which wish for me, pray for me. If I draft Derrick Henry, I'm going to be so scared because he's been so bad. But I believe in him.
You got to change your tune. That's the thing is, even after his breakout game last year, I didn't pivot quick enough. I didn't buy in quick enough because I thought I had seen enough failure, but maybe he figured it out.
Yeah, well, they followed that up with a 33-carry game.
Yeah, that
Insane.
helps. All right, Mike Williams, double-digit TDs again, trending or ending? He had 11 last year, Brooks?
Yeah, I think so.
I think 1 on the ground, 10 through the air, something like that. Mike Williams, is he a double-digit tight end fluke?
I kind
of
want
a red zone monster.
I want to take the ending because I feel like you're going to take the trending because one of your bold predictions this past year was that he'd have double-digit touchdowns, and it came true. But I think you have to say it's going to keep happening. This was what he was brought in for. He's that type of a prototypical. Look,
he's a monster of a man.
If you're in the red zone, why not throw it to that dude? Now, Derrick Henry or
Hunter Henry?
Hunter Henry, maybe he comes in and eats a few touchdowns near the goal line. Delicious touchdown. But you're also probably losing Tyrell Williams to free agency. So, I mean, I don't know why you would expect Mike Williams to regress.
No, I think he has. I think he has more upward movement possible. Philip Rivers had a 131.6 quarterback rating when targeting Mike Williams. He has a huge catch radius. Look, 11th best contested catch rate amongst wide receivers. He is a playmaker, and I love him. I think he's a great player. There was a world where I was looking at. This might sound crazy, but as a dynasty buy-sell candidate, I was looking real hard at Keenan Allen, trying to figure out what I think about Keenan Allen's next few years. Because you talk about Hunter Henry coming back. I look at him as, you can make an argument that he's a red zone threat to Mike Williams. I'm not concerned about that. I think he's somebody that's going to eat up the middle of the field the way that Keenan Allen has been prone to do as well. I don't think Allen is disappearing by any stretch. Don't overread into what I'm saying. But I'm wondering in a dynasty league, would you rather have Keenan Allen today than Mike Williams? Yeah, I think you say yes. I think you have to say yes.
But you have to.
But I think Mike Williams has a lot of upward movement left in him.
I agree with that. I'm not worried at all about Keenan Allen. I think Keenan Allen is still the primary guy. He's still going to get his touchdowns. Clearly the targets, the receptions, between the 20s work. So I love both of these guys. I don't think Mike Williams hurts Keenan.
All right, let's close it out with this one. Is Big Ben Big Ben Roethlisberger, last year's quarterback 3. Is he a top 5 quarterback in 2019?
Nope.
Is he a top 10 quarterback in 2019?
I'm going to say no.
If you say no, what does that mean for Juju? If Juju doesn't have a top 10 quarterback,
That's fine.
is he the same player?
Oh, he's fine. The Juju's fine. Let me ask you this. In 2016, who was the quarterback, the wide receiver 1?
In 2016?
In 2016?
Antonio Brown?
Probably Antonio Brown. What about in 2015?
Brown.
Yeah, that's when Big Ben Roethlisberger was quarterback 18, quarterback 21.
That's a solid argument.
I'm not worried about – look, when you lose Antonio Brown, it will have effects. It will have effects on every other player on the roster. And, look, this was Big Ben's best year for fantasy finish ever. And I don't think that it's because of any other reason than the fact that you have Antonio Brown and Juju show up. You have pretty much your best core at their own peaks ever. And it's going the opposite direction now. So
and you got it for just 1 year.
I mean, I was really high on Big Ben this past season as a fantasy player. We had Splain Yourself episodes on my love for him, and that's gone now. Now, if I will say this, if Antonio Brown is back, sure, he'll definitely be a top 10.
There was a little bit of extra news this morning. Jack Doyle, tight end for the Colts, he underwent offseason hip surgery. So he will be sidelined until training camp. He's probably going to miss all of OTAs. He's probably going to miss all of minicamp. He missed a ton of time in the regular season last year. He ended up on injured reserve late in the season. Look, it's concerning.
Eric Ebron.
Doyle is 29.
Eric Ebron. I'm so happy that Eric Ebron finally became a thing because I was a real believer. And he kept letting you down. But what's crazy
I think Eric Ebron might be a thing again.
Yeah, because look, tight ends.
Just why you should trade me Mark Andrews. You don't need him.
Historically, tight ends take several years before they become relevant. It's very common. Very common. Look at Greg Olsen. For it to be the second contract is when a tight end actually becomes a really relevant piece. Well, this is his second contract. Now he's on a great offense. He's 25. You feel like he's 32.
It's bewildering because you feel with when Ebron came onto the scene and Doyle came onto the scene, you feel like Doyle's younger. Doyle's 29 with hip injuries.
Right.
Eric Ebron is 25 somehow and never ages.
Right. No, it's fantastic.
Yeah. I mean, that trending or ending Eric Ebron?
I'm going trending. I believe in Eric Ebron. I do. I mean, I always have. And I think he's a very easy guy to target to say,
late bloomer.
He's going to regress because his touchdown pace was ridiculous. But I actually believe even if his touchdown pace regresses, which I would say is fair,
right?
His production for fantasy in the offense, in a great offense, is going to be fine. He's going to be a top 5 tight end.
Yeah, I mean, the argument against him would be a few things. One, adding another pass-catching piece in the wide receiver game. They have T.Y. Hilton and a bunch of
scrubs,
misfits. Yeah, Zach Pascal and, last year it was Dontrell Inman and there were a handful. But if they add another powerful wide receiver piece and then, can Andrew Luck throw 40 touchdowns again? Of course he can. But he's probably a candidate to lose 4 or 5 of his touchdowns this year. He threw 39. If Marlon Mack gets in the end zone a handful more times, Nyheim Hines out of the backfield, there's a world where, like you said, I think the odds are that Ebron's touchdown totals go down. But maybe he's a little more consistent than he was last year. That would be the hope, that he's more involved on a week-to-week basis, not just this, 3 touchdowns here, 3 touchdowns there, and then a goose egg. That's what hurt last year.
Yeah. It's hard for any tight end to be consistent for fantasy unless they're a 150 target guy like a Zach Ertz or Travis Kelce.
Yeah, no doubt.
Pristine deal of the day.
All right, as we close it out, we got the pristine deal of the day, pristineauction.com. Let them know the footballer sent you when you sign up and bid, because today...
This one's ridiculous.
Well, which one? There are 2. We're throwing 2 in there real quick.
I'm going to go with the one that was just talked about. This is the less ridiculous, still ridiculous one. T.Y. Hilton, we were just talking about him. Signed Indianapolis Colts jersey, PSA certified,
yeah.
Authentic signature, $47.
Yesterday.
$47. Hang that on your wall.
$47.
That's unbelievable.
And then if you want some old school gear, they
This
got
one
everything.
is-
They got everything. It is crazy, too. Jerry Rice signed 49ers logo football, Beckett certified, Beckett witnessed, $65.52.
Now, is this a Jerry Rice with a G? Is this a different
No,
man?
this is the real Jerry
This
Rice.
is the Hall of Famer, best wide receiver of all time.
Yeah, $65 for a signed logo football. And this is the thing about auctions on Pristine Auction. You can get them at the price that they're at.
Right, you don't
I
have
mean,
to-
it's not like they're just listed for $150. If you're the one on there and you grab it,
We bet on stuff all the time, every day, because it's like, whatever. I'm willing to spend $30 on this. I'm willing to spend $50. I'm willing to spend whatever. It doesn't cost you anything unless you win. And then if you win, you go, oh, I stole this thing.
all right, thanks to Pristine Auction for supporting the show. Thanks to you for listening. Mike will be back early next week. Probably be back for the Footcast tomorrow over at jointhefoot.com.
Probably.
So take care. Enjoy the Combine. Goodbye.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Fantasy Footballers Podcast. Join our fantasy football community on jointhefoot.com and follow us on Twitter @TheFFBallers.